Hi there. This is a video about the standard form of linear equations. Now, what we've been doing is we've been operating with slope-intercept form. All right, so slope-intercept form, and that's y equals mx plus b, okay? Now, standard form is just a different way for us to write a linear equation, and we write that as AX plus BY is equal to C. Now, what I notice as the difference right off the bat is that X and Y are on the same side of the equal sign, and in slope-intercept form, we have that equation solved for Y, okay? So we use these in different situations. Sometimes you're given a problem in standard form and you want to put it into slope-intercept form, and that's something that we can easily do. And we can also go from slope-intercept form to standard form. Now, before we go through any problems, one of the things that I want to talk about is this value of A, okay? And A, we're going to call this a natural number, all right? Now, remember, a natural number is just a counting number, all right? And so what that means is that it's a, positive counting number, all right, if you will. And so that's what we want to keep in mind when we're manipulating going from slope-intercept form to standard form. All right, so let's look at an example. All right, so on this example, all we want to do is write the standard form of each line. All right, so here's our example. We've got this equation, y equals negative 5x plus 4. And what we want to do is we want to put x and y on the same side of our equal sign. Now, we've already got a positive y here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply, or I'm going to add 5x to both sides. So if I add 5x to both sides, all right, I can move that around, cross that off, and I'm going to get 5x and then plus y is equal to 4. And now what we notice is that 5 is a positive number, all right? It's not a fraction. And so, this is good. And so 5x plus y equals 4 is the standard form of this equation. Now, the next one that we've got is y equals 4x minus 2. Now, same thing, we just want to move this 4x term over to the other side, all right? And so what we would do is we would subtract 4x from both sides, all right? And this would cancel out here. Our next step down, we would write negative 4x and then plus y is equal to negative 2. Now, in theory, this is fine. However, we have a negative 4 out in front of our x, and we don't want a negative 4. So now what we have to do is we have to manipulate this equation, and we have to multiply everything by negative 1 so that we can change this sign here, all right? And what we're going to do is once we multiply this by negative 1, we're going to distribute our negative 1 into each of those parts. And we have negative 1 times negative 4, which gives us a positive 4x. We have negative 1 times y, which gives us a minus y. And then we have a negative 1 times negative 2, which gives us a positive 2. All right? And so this is our answer for how we would want to write this equation in standard form. Okay, now on the next one, what we have is we have y equals 1/3 x minus 6. Okay, now what we want to do is the exact same thing. We want to move our x term over to the other side of the equation, all right, and we would do that by subtracting 1/3 x from both sides, all right, and that's going to go away, and then you're left with negative 1/3 x plus y is equal to negative 6, okay? Now, here's the issue, all right? Down here, you've got first of all, you got a negative number, but now you have a fraction, okay? And we can't have a fraction as our leading coefficient. It has to be a natural number, a counting number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something like that, okay? And so what I want to do, because this is negative and because we have a fraction here, I want to get rid of our fraction. And what we're going to do is we're going to multiply by this denominator and make sure that we multiply by a negative number so that the negatives go away. So if we multiply everything by -3, and we distribute that -3 into each part of this, then what's going to happen is this. All right, we're going to get, and let me write this out. We're going to get -3/1 times -1/3 times x. All right, and then we're going to get -3y. -3 times y is -3y, and then -3 times -6 is +18. Okay, and so from here, what we can do is we can simplify this. You can do this a number of ways, but we're going to take -3 times -1, which then gives us a +3. 1 times 3 gives us a +3. X minus 3y, and that's equal to 18. Now, 3 divided by 3, that's just 1, all right, which just then leaves us with x minus 3y is equal to 18. All right, so that's a little tricky, but not too terrible, but that's how we would do a problem like that. Okay, in the next part of this video, what I want to do is graph equations in standard form. All right, now you can do this two ways. All right, and the first way that I would go about doing this is by putting it into slope-intercept form. So we can use y equals mx plus b. All right, we just have to manipulate our equation in standard form to do that. Now, what I would do is this. All right, let's say that you've got the equation x minus 2y is equal to -6. And what we want to do is graph this equation. All right, and so what we can do is we can solve this equation for y. All right, and so what I would do is I would subtract x from both sides. All right, and I would write our equation then as -2y is equal to -x and then -6. And then the next step, I would divide both sides or everything by -2. All right, and so then what we get as a result is we then get that y is equal to -x divided by -2. Think of this as like a -1 out here. So negative divided by a negative is going to give us a positive. And 1 divided by 2 we just leave as 1/2 x. And then you've got -6 divided by -2, which is +3. Okay? So if we've got y equals 1/2 x plus 3, all right, this equation is the same thing that we would see here, all right, with something that's in standard form. So from here, we can graph this because we now know that our slope is equal to 1/2 and our y-intercept is equal to 3, okay? And so if we wanted to graph something like this, all right, we would plot our first point on our y-axis at 3, and we would plot a second point by going up 1 to the right 2, using that slope and graphing an equation like that, all right? So, and that's just an extension of what we've done previously, okay? All right, the last thing that we want to do is graphing these kinds of equations using the intercepts, okay? Now, before we do anything, what I want to talk about is points on our graph here, just on the coordinate plane, all right? And if I were to graph any point on this x-axis, what I notice is that, this point would be -2, 0. This point would be 1, 0. This point would be 3, 0. And what I notice about any point on the x-axis, the y value is the same. The y value is 0. So I'm going to write that. So any point on x-axis has a y value of 0, okay? So if we wanted to look at, say, things on the y-axis, all right, let's do this point here, and this point here, and this point here. All right, this is the point, 0, -1. This is the point 0, 2. This is the point 0, 3. All right, and what I notice about any point on the y-axis has an x value of 0. So that's the opposite. So any point on the y-axis has an x value of 0. Okay, so what we can do at this point is use this information to help us graph. And here's an example of how we would do that. So let's say I have this equation, 3x plus 5y is equal to 15. Now let's say that I wanted to calculate our x-intercept. Okay, and what we would do is we would let y equals 0 and then solve for x. All right, and so what I would do is I would come in here and I would do 3x plus 5 times 0, and then that's equal to 15. And what you end up getting is you get 3x, 5 times 0 just it becomes 0 and cancels out. We can just, basically just come in here and take it away. And we get 3x is equal to 15. And we can solve that equation for x, divide both sides by 3, and you get that x is equal to 5. So when you have the point, y equals 0 and x equals 5, you can write that as 5, 0. Okay? And so that's that's what we would do for the x-intercept. Now for the y-intercept, we would do the opposite. All right, we would let x equals 0, and then we would solve for y. All right, so if we take our equation and we do 3 times then 0, and then plus 5y is equal to 15. All right, 3 times 0 is 0. That cancels out. That goes away. And then we are just left with the equation 5y is equal to 15. Divide both sides of this equation by 5, and then we get that y is equal to 3. Okay? And so what you have now is you now have the point x equals 0, y equals 3, and we could write our point then as the point 0, 3. So what we're able to do in this instance is now we have 2 points on our graph, and you only need 2 points to make a line. All right, so let's make our graph here. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on our x-axis, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on our y-axis. Let's plot the point 5, 0, and let's plot the point 0, 3, and we can use this to help us graph that equation. Okay, so you got a bunch of options here, but that's how we deal with these kinds of problems. And please let me know if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.